he has been at his. I wish him nothing but the best, and I'm really happy for him that he's making this decision. Very few of us get to go out on top.
Greeny with Mike Greenberg. Weekday mornings at 10 Eastern on ESPN Radio. Plus, you can watch and listen on the ESPN app.
No days off when you love what you're doing. Sundays are the best day of the week because you're just one day away from First Take returning Monday, 10 a.m. Eastern on ESPN.
Max Bankman, I'm the new doctor.
Welcome aboard the Odyssey.
ABC Thursdays.
This ship is heaven. We're tending to our passengers' dreams. I'm in.
From 911 executive producer Ryan Murphy comes a splashy new drama on a luxury cruise ship with Joshua Jackson and Don Johnson.
It's your job to keep everyone alive.
She's in VFib. 1, 2, 3. Clear.
I have a pulse.
You're going to be okay.
Dr. Odyssey. Thursdays, 9/8 Central on ABC. And stream on Hulu.
Mayfield's under center, has Irving behind him. Sends one man in motion. Pitch to the left is Bucky Irving, and this time there's no question about it. Slices its way into the end zone for the rushing touchdown. And no one has to replay that one. Welcome back. It's ESPN Prime Time here at ESPN Radio. ESPN app, Sirius XM Channel 80. We are presented by Progressive Insurance. I'm Mark Zeno. He's Orlando Franklin. And what you heard was more from the NFC South. And look, this is a division here that Orlando is shaping up what a lot of people thought was going to be one of the worst divisions in football. At least through 4 weeks, we're starting to see some signs that certainly may not be the case. As the Buccaneers go on to defeat the Eagles today, 33-16 was not the final. What was our final? 33-, help me out. My scoreboard isn't up. I apologize. What was the final? Where did it go? I can't. 33-16 was the final. Look at that.
33-16.
Yeah, okay. So much for me being prepared. I apologize. Nonetheless, it was a rout all the way. They were up 24-7 at half. The Eagles never really were in this thing. Obviously, they couldn't get Saquon Barkley going. We already talked about no Devonta Smith, no A.J. Brown. Jalen Hurts was out there on an island, but look at Baker Mayfield, 30 of 47, 347 yards, 2 touchdowns. Mike Evans, 94 yards and a touchdown. This Buccaneers offense has been very good. Save the one game against the Broncos, which we figured out now is a really good defense. They have been able to do what they want pretty much all season long offensively and really have surprised some teams.
Yeah, shout out to them because they really flipped the switch. Last week, they gave up a ton of sacks. They gave up 7 sacks to that Broncos team. Today, they were able to hone in and protect Baker and get it done. The run game was strong. Mike Evans reemerged because last week he was taken out of that game as well. But Baker continues to have that short-term memory and looks better and better. And this is a guy that everybody was showing him the door. It's so crazy when you look at Baker Mayfield, Mark. It all comes back to that short week where he got released in Carolina, flew across the country, gets to the Rams. They're playing against the Raiders on Thursday Night Football. He goes out there, looks horrible the whole entire game, and then you have an opportunity to win it in a 2-minute drill, and he executes it flawlessly. And now his career back on track, right? Gets down to Tampa, has to prove it, and gets that contract, and now he's the face of that organization for the next couple years. So this team has been battle-tested and put through some adversity, and it was nice to see them jump back on it and really hit the Eagles in the mouth today.
So the Buccaneers at 3-1 sit atop the NFC South. The Falcons and Saints played today, with the Falcons winning 26-24. The Falcons, however, did not score an offensive touchdown in this game. Go figure that. Special teams touchdown, defensive touchdown, 4 field goals gets the Falcons a 26-24 win, and they needed it from Younghoe Koo, who nailed this one at the buzzer.
A 58-yard try to win the game with 7 seconds left. Pinion to hold, McCullough to snap. Snap spot. Kick from Koo is away. And it is good! 58! And the money shot for Younghoe Koo.
The incomparable Wes Storm and Dave Archer on 90-9 the game here in Atlanta. Falcons approved to 2-2. Look, the Falcons came in with a ton of expectations, right? Given what they had put together in the offseason. Kirk Cousins, they have a number one wide receiver in Drake London. They have a top running back in Bijan Robinson, a great second back in Tyler Algier. They have a very athletic and dynamic tight end, despite the fact that taking him at 4 overall was a disgustingly abhorrent idea by the Falcons, but that's neither here nor there. You don't take tight ends at 4 overall. That said, they have weapons galore for Kirk Cousins to work with. Now, has the offense looked great? No, but this is still a little bit of a work in progress here. Much like we talked about the Jets earlier, Orlando, and you can speak to this better, the growth and maturity of an offense, especially with new people, new quarterback, new everything coming in, takes more time than people want to give it credit to. Sometimes it clicks right off the bat. Sometimes it does not, and it takes a little time to get going. I think the Falcons are in that latter category.
Yeah, offensively, but I think defensively they've came out and they've played pretty solid throughout the first 4 weeks of the season. Today against the Saints, that's the highest points that they've given up all season in 24, holding the Chiefs to 22, right? The Eagles to 21, and the Steelers to 18. So I do believe that this team is trying to figure out who they are under Raheem Morris, and it's going to continue to change, but Kirk Cousins is a solid quarterback. He's not going to dazzle you, but he's going to get through the progression and go put the ball where it's supposed to go. So I could see this team offensively continuing to develop each and every week. And, you draft Michael Penix Jr., right? And there are going to be people that say, hey, we want to make sure that he's getting the reps and developing him. Well, now you're in the season, so you can't develop him. But I think that just how practice and training camp and off seasons are constructed, that maybe Kirk Cousins wasn't taking like all the reps if he was a Peyton Manning or, one of these big time quarterbacks that have played, or like a Sam Darnold going into Minnesota. I think the situation was always that, Sam, you're our guy. JJ, you're our guy down the road, where their approach might have been a little bit different with Penix Jr. trying to get him some reps to develop him and maybe play him later on in the season.
Falcons still have a lot more to achieve. Raheem Morris talked about his team's destiny, if there is one, after the game.
No, I don't feel like Cinderella. I feel like you got to go out there and play every single game, and you got to go out there and try to win. And the poised team and the more poised team usually wins. And right now I'm trying to show my team poise. I'm trying to show them poise, what it looks like, what it feels like to be resilient. And they're showing us, and they're showing our city. Man, I can't say enough good things about the fan base today. That place was a home field advantage today. That thing was rocking. And almost caught me dancing to get me out of character on the sideline, man. That was outstanding.
What hasn't been outstanding is Kirk Cousins. For the $180 million contract he signed, he's got just 4 touchdowns. He has 4 picks on the season, an overall quarterback rating of 89. Not really good. He hasn't completed more than today. He completed 21 passes. That's the most he's completed all season long. Granted, his completion percentage isn't terrible right now, sitting in the 66.7% range, but still not an offense that is as high-flying as the one he was running in Minnesota. He spoke a little bit about the frustrations that he has had so far this year.
You look pretty frustrated, and I wonder if you're often this frustrated after a win.
I wouldn't be if I played really well or we played really well, but I do dislike this about myself, that I kind of have a standard that's maybe unreachable, and even after a win, you feel like you got to play better. But I'll still enjoy the win, believe me. But there's just a lot we left out there.
Well, I never like hearing that.
Again, why?
Because as the quarterback, the game of football, you're constantly being told that, hey, you got to be perfect, you got to be perfect, you got to be perfect. And you understand at a very young age, while you're in college, if you played enough snaps, that you're never going to be perfect. It's just never going to happen. You're going to miss something. So for me, in a moment right after a game, you pump up the things that did go well, right? You pump up your defense. You pump up, the guys that are around you. You pump up the fact that you ran the ball very efficiently today between both of your running backs back there. I think Atlanta could have leaned a little bit more into the run game today, as it takes some off of Kirk a little bit. But I never really like when it's like my standard and holding myself to something else, because it's the ultimate team sport. It really takes all 11 guys to go out there and find success. And if one guy messes up, that play could be a disaster.
Falcons, bottom 4 in the league, 4th worst on third down conversions through 4 games this season. The only teams worse, Carolina, Jaguars, and Cleveland. Yeah, not a lot of wins there from any of those guys. All right, coming up next, we'll look ahead to Sunday Night Football, Bills versus Ravens. That's coming up next. I'm Mark Zinno. He's Orlando Franklin. This is Primetime on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
Hey, it's Greeny, and Bama does it. Their domination of Georgia continues. Does this mean we should just put the Crimson Tide into the playoff right now? We'll talk about it Monday. It's Greeny, starting 10 a.m. Eastern on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
Do you have trouble getting in and out of the bathtub? Are you afraid you'll slip and fall entering or exiting a tub? Safe Step walk-in tubs can transform your bathtub from an area of concern to a calming refuge. Call them today at 1-800-731-4558 and save $1,600. Safe Step walk-in tubs and showers are proudly made in Tennessee and offer an ultra-low step-in, avoiding that difficult climb over a traditional bathtub wall. They also offer a variety of therapeutic benefits that may help soothe your aching muscles and joints, increasing your mobility, boosting your energy, and improving your sleep. Safe Step walk-in tubs are designed to easily fit your existing tub space and are often installed in as little as 1 day. Just dial 1-800-731-4558 today to save $1,600 and receive a free shower package. That's 1-800-731-4558 for a free no-obligation consultation and to save $1,600. Safe Step walk-in tubs. Safety never felt so good.
Carlin versus Joe on ESPN Radio.
Who scares you right now? When you go to the NBA, you've got certain teams like in baseball and in hockey. You have the teams that scare everyone because they are loaded. Who scares you right now in the NFC? Legitimately, like, oh man, that team's a problem. Nobody wants to go to Minnesota in January. Like, yeah, Minnesota's look good, no knock, but who's got you right now?
Carlin versus Joe. Weekdays at noon Eastern on ESPN Radio, the ESPN app, and on SiriusXM Channel 80. Evan, Canty, and Michelle are unsportsmanlike.
It is now beyond a point where Kevin Stefanski, 2-time Coach of the Year, has to stick with Deshaun Watson. All you need is average quarterback play. This guy is not an average quarterback. And I cannot believe that Jameis Winston is a better option, but I believe they're going to get average quarterback play at some point. It just may not be from Deshaun Watson. I'm not giving up on this team.
Unsportsmanlike. Weekday mornings starting at 6 Eastern on ESPN Radio and on ESPN2. Amber and Ian.
They can't run the football. Dak had to throw it 51 times. Zeke Elliott is not the same guy. They abandoned the run early. Why? Because they can't run the ball. They did not draft a running back knowing they didn't have one. They didn't even pick up anybody as an undrafted free agent. Who's the starting running back right now for the Kansas City Chiefs? Carson Steele.
Amber and Ian. Weeknights at 7 Eastern on ESPN Radio and on SiriusXM Channel 80. This is Freddie and Harry on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
Trey in South Carolina, what was the best game you played growing up, my friend?
Well, I said Monopoly, but that's kind of boring. I want to change my answer.
Go ahead.
My favorite game was watching the Dallas Cowboys with a real quarterback when they used to have Troy Aikman.
Wow. Check out more from Freddie and Harry weekdays at 3 Eastern on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
Noon Eastern on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
This is SportsCenter.
I'm Nick DeLuca. All Niners in San Francisco on NFL Sunday. They blow out the Patriots 30-13. The offense helped pick up an early lead. Then the defense put points on the board.
Snap to Brissett. Has time. Now pressure coming. Throws. Intercepted at the 45-yard line. Fred Warner jumped up and grabbed it, and he's running down the right sideline. 30, 20, 10, near the pylon. touchdown. Warner hit the pylon in the front right. A pick six for Fred Warner.
Mark Kestisher here on ESPN Radio. Warner has 3 forced fumbles and 2 interceptions through 4 games this season. Brock Purdy threw for 288 and a touchdown. Jordan Mason finishing with 123 yards rushing. His 3rd game with at least 100 in place of injured All-Pro Christian McCaffrey. The Patriots fall to 1-3. New England has been held under 150 yards passing in each of the first 4 games of the season. First time that's happened since 1971. Elsewhere, Chiefs receiver Rashee Rice slated for an MRI on a knee injury tomorrow. Head coach Andy Reid said it doesn't look good. Post-game team fears it's a torn ACL. Chiefs get a win against the Chargers 17-10 in L.A., but maybe without Rice for an extended period of time. Final day of the baseball regular season. Braves lose, Mets and D-backs win to create some chaos in the NL wildcard race.
Hey, it's your resident Super Bowl champ, Chris Candy. Coming up Monday, Bills, Ravens, and Georgia-Bama are just 2 of the huge matchups going on this weekend, and I'll react to it all in my Upon Further Review at 7 a.m. Eastern. It's Unsportsmanlike right here on ESPN Radio, ESPN2, and ESPNU.
This is Prime Time on ESPN Radio and on the ESPN app.
Welcome back to Prime Time here on ESPN Radio, the ESPN app, Sirius XM, Channel 80. For that about Progressive Insurance news from Game Day Nation, just hit us up on the Dr. Pepper call online at 888-729-3776. That 888-SAY-ESPN. I'm Mark Zinno. He's Orlando Franklin. As we get you set for Sunday Night Football in just a moment. But for Chiefs Kingdom, Chiefs Nation, the worst is feared to have been true. Chiefs wide receiver Rashee Rice suffered a torn ACL. That's per Adam Schefter on X/Twitter. They will do more tests tomorrow to 100% confirm it, but it looks like Rashee Rice will be done for the rest of the year with a torn ACL, a guy who was just off to just what looked to be like an incredible season ahead of him. It ends in 3 games plus 1 quarter, and the Chiefs will now have to look for other options here, Orlando. A big blow to their offense, which was already struggling even with Rice.
Yeah, in 3 games, 288 yards out of that young man. The speed, the athletic ability, the way he adjusts to the football in the air, that's a massive blow to a team that there's not a lot of pass catchers around, not a lot of guys that Patrick Mahomes could really depend on. And now it gets to that street ball type of attitude where you got to hold on to it a little bit longer and, maybe wait till a guy is open or guess if he's going to be open. And now you start throwing more and more interceptions or just not putting your team in the best position to succeed. It's going to be very interesting to see what they do, who steps up, or how they do it, if they do it by committee. If I'm Kansas City, I'm getting on the phone and seeing if I can make a deal with some of these teams around the league.
It's good. I mean, trade deadline comes up quick on the NFL. As soon as you hit October, 2 or 3 weeks in, they may have to do it. They may have to look off the scrap heap and see what's around, or they may just turn around and go, hey, it's Patrick Mahomes. He'll fix it for us, and that's a luxury that not a lot of other teams can say that they have, but the Chiefs do have it. So that's very much going to be – go ahead.
But in the past, with that being said, right, I just truly believe that they had a better offensive line than what they have right now, right? So you can say that, it's Patrick Mahomes, and he's a unicorn, and he's going to figure it out. He's going to make us right, and he's going to help develop the guys that we have on this roster. But Nicole Hardman, we know what he is. He's very, very fast, but he's very unreliable out there, right? Mm-hmm. So with the drops and tips and overthrows, got to get those as a defense. They salivate at the mouth once that ball gets bobbled up or pops up in the air. So do you really want to put guys out there like that you kind of understand who they are and their identity, and they've already got opportunities to really take the job, and they hadn't taken it where led you to looking in free agency or drafting these younger guys to try to develop them?
They will have some questions to answer. That is for sure. Again, per Adam Schefter, Rashee Rice feared to have suffered a torn ACL. They'll test for it tomorrow. We'll confirm it for the Chiefs wide receiver. All right, also in the mix in the AFC with the Chiefs, the Buffalo Bills and the Baltimore Ravens as they get set for Sunday Night Football. They will kick it off at M&T Bank Stadium coming up here, in about the next 15 minutes or so as things get underway. But, it's interesting just because, again, the Ravens are off to a start that nobody thought was possible given where they were. They lose the opener to the Chiefs. They blow a 10-point lead late to the Las Vegas Raiders and lose at home. And then last week they almost blow a lead against the Dallas Cowboys in a game where the Cowboys almost came out and tied it. So now they go up against the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen and the Bills, who through 3 weeks I think led the league in scoring. I know some of the numbers have changed now, but he's been phenomenal. He looks like an MVP. The Bills have been great on the defensive side of the ball, despite the loss of Matt Milano, some of the key players in the secondary in the offseason. They have been very, very good, but it'll be a tough test for the Bills up against the Ravens here in Orlando. So how does this one play out?
I think the Bills get this one. I'm just not sold on the Baltimore Ravens. Unfortunately, play calling. I think Lamar is exactly as advertised, and the fact that you go get King Henry and you got Hill back there at the running back position, you could really do some damage and wear defense is down. But it all goes back to Thursday night, opening night in the National Football League. Got to have it situation. It's third down. You need a touchdown. You're going to the end zone. It's fourth down. You need a touchdown. You're going to the end zone. Both times you have the smallest guy on your roster blocking Chris Jones. So I just think schematically for this Baltimore Ravens team, they don't do what they should be doing when you got a guy like Justice Hill. How big is Justice Hill? I mean, I watched him line up, Matt, no joke. He was giving everything he has, and praise him for dying a slow death back there. And that's what you kind of tell the wide receivers or the running backs when they get matched up in these situations. You got to go block a Von Miller type or a guy coming off the edge. But he had to go up against Chris Jones for the final 2 plays of the game, and it made no sense to me that ended up happening in this offense. So I cannot get behind a organization where I'm seeing constant mistakes like that. So I think the Bills get it done against them.
Well, the biggest problem for the Ravens this year, hasn't really been their offense. It's been their defense. I mean, we talk about identity. The Ravens' defense used to be a calling card forever. This is a team that after 3 games, dead last in passing yards allowed and passing yards per game. Dead last. 291 yards per game they allow through the air. This was a team that, had Ray Lewis and then had, Terrell Suggs and Ed Reed.
Gusa.
I mean, this was the defense has always been part of the Ravens' calling card. Yeah. And it's not there this year, and that's the problem. And not only has it been leaking, but more importantly, Orlando's been leaking late, like in the fourth quarter, like blowing a 10-point lead to the Raiders and then letting the Cowboys get back in the game in the fourth quarter. Look, this is a Buffalo team that comes at you for 60 minutes. Mm-hmm. They don't take their foot off the gas pedal. They've been burned too many times to do it. So this is a tough spot here for the Ravens. But I think if somehow they can get pressure on Allen, the dangerous part is that, guess what, he could take off and run. But it's hard to cover guys for 5, 6, 7 seconds. And if Allen's moving around, guys are going to be open. That's a disadvantage Ravens.
He's a big, strong kid, right? You got to rally to the football. And I think when you go up against Allen, it's not about winning your one-on-one matchups from a defensive line perspective. It's about claps in the pocket, right? And making it condense and getting them uncomfortable that way, because he is so big and strong and athletic that you just beating your guy might open up a hole where now he could do some real damage with his legs. 2 things could be true when you look at this Ravens team. The training facility getting rehab because you got a little nicked up and because you ran the ball 10 times in a football game.
I think, too, the problem is that the Ravens become predictable when they play from a negative game. When they get down and Lamar has to throw them back into a game, it doesn't work for the Ravens. That's not the formula. That's not the game script that they want to play in. When they play with a lead, Lamar is a much more dynamic, much better quarterback. And this goes for a lot of quarterbacks in this league. It's not necessarily always about Lamar, but the point simply is again that I still don't trust him at this point to throw his team back into a game. I've seen enough to know that it doesn't always work that way and it doesn't work well for them. So if you can get the Ravens to play from behind, they're in trouble. If they play with a lead, it's typically that you're in trouble because their run game is so good and so dynamic, they can just grind you down in the later part of a game and sort of take your ability to get back in and out of it. So it's about game script for me when it comes to the Ravens and where they are and how they play. And to an extent to what you're talking about, Orlando, it's game plan. It's play calling. It's how do you want to execute a game plan that you're in. But if they can't slow down Josh Allen and the Bills' offense tonight, it's going to be a very, very long night for them.
No, look at last week, right? You talk about that Dallas game and Dallas coming back into this or figuring out things to try to get back into, claw their way back into that one. Lamar Jackson had 15 attempts on the day, right? So this team is built to be able to play with the lead, wear you down, run the football. They want to win the time of possession battle each and every week. They definitely don't want to come from behind. And they exposes Lamar. The more you put yourself in that position where you do have to come from behind, because I think it's more of he can't help himself. Even if, if you call a play, right, Mark, and say you're in like a 3-by-1 set, so you got 3 wide receivers to the right. And I think Lamar will look at that triangle, but he'll never get back to looking at that one side, right? And that one side could have beat his man and been wide open, but Lamar is going to say, okay, here's my 1, 2, 3 read, and now I'm going to go. Instead of going 1, 2, 3, let me take a peek at 4, and I might be able to throw the ball in that situation. So because his mindset is kind of like that, when I watch him, he's going to pull it down more and use his legs, and that's when he's going to open up himself to possibly getting rolled up on it and just getting really hit really hard, and now he's not what he was. And the game of football, you understand that there are injuries that come with it, but the quarterback position, once a guy gets dinged up, you take a big drop off if that guy's not 100% healthy.
So a lot to do tonight here on Sunday Night Football. We'll see how this one gets kicked off here in just a few minutes. Again, if you're just joining us and haven't heard the news, Chiefs wide receiver Rashid Rice feared to have suffered a torn ACL. That's per Adam Schefter on X. We'll have more on that. Coming up next, is a Super Bowl coach already on the hot seat after 4 games? We'll answer that question. It's primetime on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
The playoffs have arrived, and it all begins with Wild Card Week.
High fly ball. It is deep, and the game is tied.
Welcome to October.
Listen to this place.
Major League Baseball's Wild Card Week begins Tuesday on ESPN Radio and on ESPN.
Every 40 seconds, a child is reported missing. That's 2,000 children every single day. It's a heart-wrenching reality that we can no longer ignore. Find the Children is a non-profit organization dedicated to helping find missing kids. You can be a part of their mission by donating your unwanted vehicle, running or not. Call 1-800-294-0222. We guarantee that you will receive the maximum tax deduction. We provide fast, free pickup with 24-hour response. Call 1-800-294-0222. Find the Children provides crucial resources to help find missing children and educational materials to teach kids how to recognize and avoid predators. Our recovery programs have a proven track record of reuniting kids with their families. It's time to act. Donate your unwanted or unused car. Help us build a world where every child is safe. Pick up the phone and call 1-800-294-0222. Together, we can bring these kids home safely. This advertisement was paid for in partnership with Cars R Us and Find the Children.
At your job, do you ever have to deal with a nose roller? How about a snub pulley? Well, if you're installing a new conveyor belt system, dealing with the different components can sound like you're speaking a foreign language. Luckily, you've got a team ready to help. Grainger's technical product specialists are fluent in maintenance, repair, and operations. So whenever you want to talk shop, just reach out. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
What's poppin', y'all? On this episode of the Numbers on the Board podcast, we talked about what we each would do if we were the commissioner of the NBA. Also had the pleasure of ranking our top 10 power forwards. You want to stick around and see who got to that top 3. As always, check us out on wherever you get your podcasts.
How are you? My name's Scott Van Pelt, host of SV Pod, along with my partner in crime, Stanford Steve. What do we talk about mostly on the podcast, Steve?
Sports.
Some.
Parenting?
I feel like that comes up a lot. I feel like most recently I've needed some help because I feel like my shortcomings there are evident. It's life stuff, relatable content.
It's fun.
It's just two bald-headed goons just talking about nonsense a lot in a crowded podcast space. There's that one.
We're here.
Here we are.
Matthew.
Huh? Oh, sorry.
It's okay. I just need you to listen to me.
I know that a lot of times, Mom, it might not seem like I'm listening to you, but I am. I hear you. And what you say really does matter to me.
I mean, let's be honest. No kid likes rules, but I get why we have them. I hear you, and I know it's because you care.
All the talks we've had over the years, including what you've told me about not using alcohol and other drugs, they stick with me. And believe it or not, they really do make a difference, especially at times that matter most.
Hey, want a drink?
No thanks, I'm good. So thank you, Dad, for talking and preparing me for what's ahead.
Thanks, Mom, for never giving up and always being my biggest fan.
Thank you for letting me know what you expect, so I can try to meet your expectations.
Thank you for talking.
For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
And on the SEC Network.
Austin CJ rolls out to the right, throws to the end zone, hits Dory, and the Texans score. They lead. C.J. Stroud to Dare Ogunbowale, who's had a huge game, puts the Texans on top.
That was the call on Sports Radio 610 in Houston as the Texans defeat the Jacksonville Jaguars 24-20. As the Texans improve to 3-1, the Jaguars now fall to 0-4 on the season, and it is trouble time for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Well, look, I don't want to do the I told you so dance, but I'm going to do the I told you so dance. When that contract was signed this offseason, I said the Jaguars made a terrible mistake giving Trevor Lawrence all that money. He hadn't proven anything. He played 8 good games and won a playoff game only because Brandon Staley was a putz and the Chargers stink, not because he actually earned a win in that playoff game. But yet they paid him like he had done something in this league. And it's not to knock Trevor Lawrence, but at this point, and I told everybody this offseason in Orlando, there are at least a dozen better quarterbacks than Trevor Lawrence. And to pay him in the top 3 was absolutely maniacal business by the Jacksonville Jaguars. So now they have an overpaid quarterback. Now they're not really sure what direction they're going to go in. And oh, by the way, one of the more unbelievable things to me in the history of the NFL is how Doug Peterson actually has a Super Bowl on his record. He is a terrible coach. He is awful. That Super Bowl was won by Frank
the Philly
Reich.
special?
No. Philly, you can take it and stick it with a sundown shot. I don't care. That Super Bowl was won by Frank Reich and that offense. Doug Peterson, I don't understand what anybody saw. This is a bad head coach. He's not a quarterback whisperer. He doesn't make anybody better. It's a bad head coach. This is a bad team. They don't have a good quarterback. They are in trouble. Doug Peterson was asked about his job status after the game.
Stop worrying about your status.
My status?
After an 0-4 start.
I mean, no. I mean, it's kind of a strange question, but okay.
No, it's really not. And the fact that you're not aware enough to know that question is valid sends a major signal to me, if you ask me, Orlando.
Yeah, there's a lot going on with this Jacksonville Jaguars team. You kind of touched on the fact of Trevor Lawrence. This is an 0-4 football team. This is the 9th straight defeat for Trevor Lawrence at the quarterback position for Jacksonville. The 9th straight one. So that means last year you dropped 5 in a row for Trevor Lawrence, and you still decided to give him the contract that you gave him this offseason. There's just a lot going on. When you look at a head coach that's willing to start pointing the fingers at other people rather than pointing the fingers at himself, you're losing the locker room. There are other comments, not worried about your job. As a player, we're always worried about our job. I've been on teams where we are rolling, and all of a sudden I see Richie Incognito's visiting the Denver Broncos. And now I am sweating profusely, wondering what in the world's going on, because every position I've seen Richie Incognito play was left guard. That's all I've ever seen him play. So is this organization down on me? Are they getting ready to make a change? So for Doug Peterson to be making these comments of just not worried, especially after a loss today where you blow a lead in the fourth quarter, it shows you how disconnected with reality he really is in this situation.
Exactly. And the idea that he actually said out loud, that's a strange question. You know the easy coach speak here, Orlando? We're 0-4. We're not winning games. Everyone's got to be better. I got to be better. Coaches got to be better. We all got to be better. This is a results-based league. We got to win now. We're not going to win. There's a chance for all of us to lose our jobs. Next question.
Yeah, because
that's
it just
how
gets
you handle
worse.
That. But the idea that you were caught
worse.
off guard, to me, is so telling. That you are so secure in what is going on, it's mind-numbing to me. Peterson had another exchange with a reporter discussing play calling. Take a listen.
We, as coaches, we can't go out there and make the plays, right? It's a two-way street. So, you guys can sit here and point the finger all you want, and that's fine. Point it right at me. I can take it. Okay? I can take it. So, whatever you want to ask me, say, whatever, right, go ahead.
You could tell us at your introductory news conference a couple of years ago, if it's not working, if it's not in rhythm, whether it's your plays or not, that you hand off the play caller. Is it just one of those, maybe it's just a voice, a confidence? You guys were cooking when you were doing it, to look back in 22.
Yeah, sure. Okay, I'll take it into consideration.
Yeah, he just looks like a person that doesn't really want to be there at this point. And nothing gets better for what Doug Peterson went up there and did today, whether it was worried about your job or talking about the play calling. Now you're really pointing at your players. You can't go out there and make the plays? Really? I mean, I am very interested to see how the next team meeting goes with that football team early tomorrow morning, because I know a lot of guys that would check right out of that meeting and just stop paying attention and say, this coach looks like he's for himself and just worried about himself, and he's willing to point the finger at us in this situation. It's a very fair question to ask a offensive-minded head coach if you are going to consider taking over the play calling when you have a 0-4 start. That is very fair in this line of business. And for him to answer it the way that he did, I think it gets a lot worse before it ever starts getting better for the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yeah, again, I think there's a certain level of tone deafness to this whole thing that, just isn't there at this point in time for Doug Peterson. And the idea that he's not aware of, or the questions seem out of bounds to him is just very telling. And it says a lot. I don't know how much it was for you when you played. I think it's more now that players, they see all the things that coaches say. They can hear all the things that coaches say. In certain cases, they probably seek it out, what coaches say. If not, somebody's probably sending it to them on social or whatever it is. So, all those words you have to choose very carefully when you're a coach in the NFL right now, because, as you said, players will check out. And the apathy with which he approached it to me was sort of insane.
Exactly what you said earlier, Mark, should have been said in that situation. We lost. Right now we are stinking it up. Everybody needs to be better from the top down as an organization. I would say even the ownership needs to be better in a situation like that, because everybody is making decisions for this organization and these things are not working. And the losses are getting more and more embarrassing. I thought Jacksonville was in complete control of this football game at one point today, and it looked like they were running the ball really well, throwing it okay, but they should be able to continue to build. The third quarter rolled around. They made some good adjustments, and then they led for a good portion. And then you just let down in the fourth quarter, and you have another loss and no wins. So when you start looking at the quarterback that was so much of a winner coming out of college, and he is going to be the next, I don't know what great quarterback you want to compare Trevor Lawrence to, but the fact that it hasn't been good at all, but that one win against the Chargers where the Chargers sat there and some questionable calls in that one, but that's the only postseason success that he's had, and the expectation was a lot better. And now he's on that second contract, and you have to give him a stamp of approval on that second contract, and you're really tied to Trevor Lawrence for the next couple years before you could go in a different direction. And that's all with Doug Peterson signing off on that and under his watch.
I'm with you. Again, it's very telling to see where he is with the whole thing. I don't think this gets better for the Jaguars anytime soon. They got to go to London. They are theoretically more comfortable there than a lot of other teams are. They play back-to-back games in London, and it's one of those scenarios where if they can't stockpile a couple wins, like we know what 0-4 means to the playoffs, right? It's basically a death toll at this point. You're not making the playoffs. You'd be part of history if you did. So the chances are infinitesimally small. We'll see what happens next with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Coming up next, your contenders in the NFL so far. It's primetime on ESPN Radio, the ESPN app.
Hey, it's Greeny, and Bama does it. Their domination of Georgia continues. Does this mean we should just put the Crimson Tide into the playoff right now? We'll talk about it Monday. It's Greeny, starting 10 a.m. Eastern on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
That's the ease at which you get information. You want it, you get it. Like that. Ask your phone, group chat, smartphone. You're always connected and informed in real time. No waiting. So if you're diabetic and still using finger sticks to read your blood sugar, what are you waiting for? Knowing your blood sugar levels instantly is important for managing diabetes. Call US Med at 888-665-0696. To learn more about continuous glucose monitors, a real-time instant method to track your blood glucose, US Med is an approved provider for Medicare and over 1,000 private insurers. And the best part? Call 888-665-0696 and we'll give you a free insurance benefits check today. So call 888-665-0696 today. That's 888-665-0696 and manage your diabetes as easy as...
The Mina Kimes Show featuring Lenny.
People always say, wow, Tua, without Tua, you see how bad this offense is, and maybe he's exposing Mike McGinn. I think it exposes how poorly built this team is and how much they were dependent on Tua's skill set and Chris Greer on Fraud Watch. Part of building a team is preparing for contingencies and being realistic about the players you have, and it feels like they have been super exposed in that way.
Check out The Mina Kimes Show featuring Lenny on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts.
On this episode of Numbers on the Board, we talk about the blockbuster deal that sent Karl Anthony Towns to New York and Julius Randle to the Minnesota Timberwolves. What does that mean for the league and the Knicks championship contention? Be sure to check that out wherever you get your podcasts.
I've been a runner my whole life.
Just survived the New York City Marathon!
But a few years ago, my life went off script in a way that I didn't see coming. I was diagnosed with epilepsy.
You just toppled over head first.
Because of that, I decided to do something possibly absurd, try and outrun a horse. 50 miles against a horse. I got this. I'm Nicole Teeny, and from ESPN and 30 for 30 podcast, this is Girl v. Horse. Search and follow Girl v. Horse in your favorite podcast player.
No days off when you love what you're doing. Sundays are the best day of the week because you're just one day away from First Take returning Monday, 10 a.m. Eastern on ESPN.
Monday, Carlin versus Joe. Alabama pulls off the upset and remains unbeaten with a huge win over Georgia. Plus, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. Sunday Night Football. It's Carlin versus Joe. Monday, noon Eastern on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
Yeah. Exclusively on ESPN Plus, UFC 307, Saturday. Reigning light heavyweight champion Alex Pereira puts his title on the line against Khalil Roundtree Jr. And Raquel Pennington defends her bantamweight title against Juliana Pena. UFC 307, Saturday at 10 p.m. Eastern. Buy it on ESPNplus.com/PPV.
Better call me iconic.
Hey, it's Michelle Smallman, and coming up Monday, I'll tell you why a loss to the Titans will end the Dolphins' playoff hopes. Plus, we're going to get you ready for the MLB playoffs. It's Unsportsmanlike, 6 a.m. Eastern, right here on ESPN Radio, ESPN2, and ESPNU.
This is SportsCenter.
I'm Nick DeLuca. Underway on Sunday Night Football in Baltimore. Bills visiting the Ravens. Buffalo looking to get to 4-0 for just the second time in the last 15 years. Ravens trying to get to 2-2. A loss would match their worst start in franchise history. Scoreless 4 minutes into the game. Bills got the ball first. A couple of first downs before punting it away near midfield. Ravens favored on ESPN Bet. Coming into tonight, the line 2.5. Six-time Josh Allen is a primetime underdog in his career. He's 4-1 in those games. Ravens 20-3 in home primetime games under John Harbaugh, best in the NFL since 2008. Earlier, Buccaneers blow out the Eagles 33-16 on a big day for Baker Mayfield.
4th and goal from the 1. Mayfield's out of the shotgun, 3 receivers to the left. Baker fakes the handoff and takes it to the end zone himself and stomps in for the 1-yard touchdown. Rushing touchdown by Baker Mayfield as he runs through Reed Blankenship. And the Bucs on the verge of blowing the Eagles out of the building.
Steve Levy on ESPN Radio. Mayfield threw for 347 and 2 touchdowns, ran for the other. Bucs improved to 3-1. Shorthanded Eagles fall to 2-2. Chiefs receiver Rashee Rice slated for an MRI on a knee injury tomorrow. Head coach Andy Reid said the injury doesn't look good. He's feared to have torn his ACL in the win over the Chargers this afternoon.
Hey, it's Greeny, and Bama does it. Their domination of Georgia continues. Does this mean we should just put the Crimson Tide into the playoff right now? We'll talk about it Monday. It's Greeny, starting 10 a.m. Eastern on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
Welcome back to ESPN Primetime on ESPN Radio, the ESPN app, Sirius XM, Channel 80, presented by Progressive Insurance. Bills and Ravens underway here on Sunday Night Football. Scoreless game here. Bills punted on their first drive. Baltimore takes over, just over 11 minutes left in the first quarter of a scoreless game. And right off the bat here, Orlando Franklin, you get your wish. You get your wish. An 87-yard touchdown run for Derrick Henry puts the Ravens on the board. And that's the way you started if you're the Baltimore Ravens.
Best play in football right there. Time of possession, 12 seconds, one play, 87 yards. Let the offensive lineman get back to the sideline so they could drink some Gatorade and hang out and dap each other up and cheer on the defense. Love it. Give this man the ball. He's too big. He's too fast. Gets out in that open field, and man, that stride is just unbelievable. But he could absorb the blows running in between this Buffalo Bills defense. Love it.
Yeah. That's a quick strike. So the Ravens go up 7-0, and Derrick Henry made it look easy. Very easy.
He's been doing it for many years, right? I mean, he doesn't even miss a step. Just a nice inside zone play. And that's the thing. When you look at it, these guys are so physical. Baltimore does a really good job of either being in 12 personnel with 2 tight ends, or they're 21 personnel where they'll add a fullback and have another tight end in the game. So they get their big guys on that second level, and it's a tough task to ask anybody to try to tackle 22 with a full head of steam.
So Ravens already out to a big, well, not a big lead, but 87 yards, 7-0 early. Just a quick strike here puts them on top. All right, let's get back onto the rails here where we talk about our contenders in the NFL. We're 4 weeks in. We're a quarter way through the season. Before we do this real quick, Orlando, as a former player, how much did you guys gauge 4 games in, like where you are and everything else and whether you feel good about yourself? I mean, we all generally just put the season into quarters because, well, it's math and it's convenient and it's easy. Yeah. Now we have an extra game because there's 17. But, you know, how much evaluation is done after 4 games about where you are?
After 4 games, you're really just looking at your identity, Mark. What are we going to be as a team? Are we an inside zone team? Are we a power team? Do we like the duo stuff? Are we moving guys backwards off the line of scrimmage? Are we moving them side to side? You're really not thinking about, can we go win it all? And I will tell you this. When I was in San Francisco that year coaching, Kyle got up in front of the room and he told the players, he said, this is our shot. Everybody talks about going to win a Super Bowl every single year. Everybody has that as a thought process. But really and truly, every single year, there's only about 8 to maybe 10 teams that have a roster that could actually win a Super Bowl. Now, and you still have to get lucky with that. And when he said that to me, I went back and I looked and just kind of thought about my career in the National Football League. And when I've had that roster for 3 years with Peyton, but yet every single time, whether it was my rookie year with Tim Tebow, John Fox talking about winning a Super Bowl. When I got to the Chargers, Coach McCoy talking about winning a Super Bowl, right? So when I played for out in Washington with the Commanders, talking about winning a Super Bowl, Coach Gruden. But really and truly, the roster, as far as the roster to win a Super Bowl, I've only had that 3 times. So this year, I think all NFL, every single year, I think about the exact same thing. There's really probably about 8 to 10 teams that have that NFL-style caliber roster to really go win the whole thing, and yet they still got to get a lucky break or two.
Well, with that, let's look at the rosters that we think are contenders here in the NFL. All right, Orlando, your contenders would be who?
So my contenders are the Houston Texans. I think they did a great job this past offseason, and the guys that they brought in to continue to build upon what they did last year. I think this football team sitting at 3-1, they got deeper than they were last year, and they got better in the wide receiver room with a already talented room. The offense that they run, very friendly, and C.J. Stroud is a dog back there at the quarterback position. So he's definitely one of my real contenders for winning a Super Bowl this year.
When I look at it from the top, you talk about a roster and the team's playing right now, it's the Buffalo Bills. Obviously the quarterback is the locomotive that pulls the train. They have the best one in the league, in my opinion, in Josh Allen. And they've had the roster for several years. They just couldn't get over the hump. The Kansas City Chiefs keep standing in the way, and that's something that they're going to have to figure out. Maybe this is the year with the Chiefs, with all the injuries that they have. Who knows? But a little early on. But I still believe the Bills as a team are with a roster that can win a Super Bowl.
Was Keon Coleman enough for the ejection of Diggs? Do you believe that Keon
I think it's addition by subtraction. I think they're better off without him. Okay. I think things are calmer. I think everybody's happier. I think there's less tension. I think everybody's sort of kumbaya together without him. There is no sense of, hey, get me the ball. Look, Keon Coleman, the rookie, it's more been Khalil Shakir than anything else so far. Yeah. That's been Allen's favorite target. If it's not James Cook out of the backfield, and you look at Dalton Kincaid as well, there is a certain amount of this roster might have gotten better without him. It just kind of feels that way, at least at the start.
So I like Josh Allen. I think, I won't go. I don't believe he's the best quarterback in the league. I believe that he has the strongest arm in the league for sure. And, playing out here in the Midwest and then going to Buffalo, where it gets very windy in that stadium, he's proven time and time again how strong that arm is at pushing the ball through that wind. So I'm excited for them. Moving along for me, though, Mark, I would say the next team that I believe can be a pretender that's kind of shocked everybody, but if they continue to go in this direction and Sam Darnold continues to play well, the Minnesota Vikings, they got a shot. Now, obviously, throughout the year, you got to get lucky. You got to get those breaks. But Aaron Jones is more than serviceable with running the ball. And if Sam Darnold plays the way that he's played the last 4 weeks and continues to be as efficient as he's been, touchdown to turnovers as well, taking care of the football while your defense has had some big moments and stepping up, I think you could create some depth, and you might look up and say, man, you know what, we got into the dance, and now let's try to make a deep run in the playoffs. And as we know, in the NFL playoffs, I truly believe at that point, especially after what the Cincinnati Bengals did a couple years ago when they made it to the Super Bowl, it's really any given Sunday. Anybody could get beat each and every week. Watching Cincinnati give up 8 sacks, but yet they still win the football game. So it could get really interesting with the Minnesota Vikings for me as that number 2 spot.
Well, it's interesting what you said when you talk about the roster, because I took it to heart and it makes a lot of sense. If you would have asked me 4 weeks ago, heading into week 1, who had a better roster, the Cowboys or the Vikings? We all would have said the Cowboys. Now, 4 weeks into this thing, we don't think the Vikings have a better roster. They've just played better. So how do you reconcile that?
Yeah. So as a team, they play better. They're playing better team defense. There are less holes on that defense for Minnesota. They're playing a better scheme for the guys and the players. I truly believe Dallas is a very talented football team. They have guys, but what are they doing with the scheme? It's too up and down with that scheme. So the scheme right now for Minnesota is good enough where you can continue to develop and rotate guys in and out. They're playing it's not like, hey, we're only playing 13 guys on defense. They're playing a couple guys on defense. They're rotating guys out on the defensive line, offensive line. That's what's going to get those guys the reps that they need and develop that roster into making it a little bit deeper for them. But they're playing lights out in that scheme.
Yeah, again, I mean, it's an interesting point. I think when we talk about, again, rosters that you feel can win it, it changes the equation just a little bit. But again, the way teams are playing the 49ers still have a roster that can win this thing. There's no doubt about it, right? I'm not going to take them off the list just because they blew a lead to the Rams last week and they lost the game to the Vikings. Like, that doesn't change my opinion. San Francisco is still one of the best 3 or 4 teams in this league. Even after 4 weeks at a 2-2 record, that doesn't shake me off them. I still think that's a really good team and a really good roster. I'd keep them on my contender list.
Yeah, that's where I was going with my end-all, be-all, my last and final team, the San Francisco 49ers. I think even though last week they lost a game and it was very ugly at the end to the Rams, you look at that offense, no Deebo Samuels, no George Kittle, no Christian McCaffrey, the emergence of Juwan Jennings and what he could be, I think you just got better. And the more Jordan Mason plays, and he's already had a couple 100-yard days on the ground behind that offensive line and in this system, you're going to be better off because of it. Defensively, very aggressive. They rotate their defensive line. They were the first team that really kind of opened my eyes when I was back there in 2021 and really seeing a 1A defensive line and a 1B defensive line where they were making wholesale changes in the middle of a game where you'd get 4 fresh defensive linemen in there, because typically in the National Football League that just doesn't happen, but they wouldn't miss a beat. And they were doing that a couple years, so they continue to do that and develop the guys that are on the roster.
And Orlando, I'm going to say the Jets still have a chance here. I think they have the roster,
really?
Certainly defensively.
Yeah.
I can only think their offense is going to get better. It can't be much worse. So if their offense starts to get even middle of the road better, then guess what? They're going to have a real chance here to make some noise. They just keep improving week after week, and if they can do that and continue to move forward that way, then guess what? This is a team that could make some noise coming up in January. All right, coming up next, we'll update you on the Ravens and Bills and our Monday Night Football preview. It's primetime on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
Hi, this is Evan Cohen. Join us Monday, 6 a.m. Eastern for Unsportsmanlike. The Chiefs stay undefeated despite the fact they're not very good for them. Jaden Daniels may be the best rookie quarterback we've seen in years. And the Minnesota Vikings do it again. All that and more. Monday, 6 a.m. Eastern, Unsportsmanlike.
If you're a facilities manager at a warehouse and your HVAC system goes down, it can turn up the heat. Literally. But don't sweat it. Grainger has you covered. Grainger offers over 1 million industrial-grade products for all your operations, including warehouse HVAC maintenance. And even better, they offer access to experts and fast delivery, so you and your warehouse can both keep your cool. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
No days off when you love what you're doing. Sundays are the best day of the week because you're just one day away from First Take returning Monday, 10 a.m. Eastern on ESPN.
Mike Greenberg. Greeny.
I have great respect for Jerry Jones, but you cannot have screwed a situation up any more than they screwed this thing up. You want to make a big splash by signing Dak Prescott to the biggest contract of all time an hour before your season kicks off? You've got to be kidding me. All it did was save you actual money. It didn't allow you to utilize the money for your football team. They're a mess.
Greeny with Mike Greenberg. Weekday mornings at 10 Eastern on ESPN Radio. Plus, you can watch and listen on the ESPN app.
Monday Night Football gears up for another double lineup. On ESPN at 7:15, DeAndre Hopkins and the Titans head to South Beach to take on Tyreek Hill and the Dolphins. And on ABC at 8, DK Metcalf and the Seahawks face Jared Goff and the Lions in Motown. Titans-Dolphins Monday at 7:15 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. And Seahawks-Lions at 8 on ABC.
No days off when you love what you're doing. Sundays are the best day of the week because you're just one day away from First Take returning Monday, 10 a.m. Eastern on ESPN.